Yes, good afternoon, everybody from Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and good morning from all away from here on the other side of the US in where? Data?
Colorado.
Hey,
Loveland, Colorado. Yeah.
the beautiful Colorado, and a new edition of Rendezvous with the present moment. And I'm super, super excited to have a mentor of mine, a person that I look up to, and a beautiful human being, uh, Datta Groover. And Datta Groover became serious about writing as a teenager. But it took him some time, it took him some decades to publish his first book,
We
Different.
won't say how many decades, but
Okay,
a lot of decades.
yeah, but the good part is this book, Different, has won 6 literary awards, including the American Fiction Award for general fiction in 2019. So there is so much hope for you guys that want to write a book and you haven't written it yet. And much more in our talk. Datta has written articles for major newspapers like the San Francisco Chronicle and has edited books for Torchlight Publishing and has taught others the art and science of writing and speaking in ways that enables them to get their message out in the world. And he loves writing contemporary fiction with a spiritual twist, with the goal of inspiring others. And when he's not writing, he enjoys coaching people how to authentically express themselves through writing and speaking. And as a teacher, he primarily works with people who have a message to share. He says that he wouldn't trade what he does for anything. That's a nice way of being in life, huh? A nice place to be in life. And in addition to his lifetime love for writing, he hosts transformational events around the world with his wife, the one and only Rachel Jane Groover, who is another mentor of mine and friend, and yes, a wonderful person. And he also loves dance, photography, hiking, exploring, meditation, and playing music, all of which energize his writing. He firmly believes that any one thing we do is always influenced by every other thing we do and by the people we hang out with. Therefore, he says we should pick our activities and associations carefully. And when he's not on the road, the Groovers live in the hills outside Loveland, Colorado, with their dogs Maya and Dakota, surrounded by lots of wild critters and vast natural beauty. And Data is a wonderful teacher, a wonderful coach in teaching the art of expressing yourself, the art of communication, and a great singer, bass guitar, if I remember correctly, bass guitar, and a wonderful writer. So we're going to talk today about, are we living an underexpressed or an unexpressed life and what to do about it? But before that, we have a tradition here. We have a centering exercise, a very short one, so we can connect to the sacred experience, us and whoever joins us. So let us close our eyes and sit tall, lengthen our spine, and breathe deeply through the nose and sigh out. And let's occupy a position of strength, of confidence, a quiet confidence, and connect with that place in ourselves of confidence. And another deep breath. Let it go. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and let's rock and roll. Welcome, Datta. Thank you so much for your generosity. You're very busy and you're taking the time to connect with me and to share your wisdom with me and others. So, unexpressed, underexpressed life. Is our soul dying if this is happening?
Great question. I wish I knew the answer to that. No,
I
I believe that our souls are they're really crying out for a lot more than they're getting. And I believe this is just part of human life is we want to express. We have a need to express. And most of us are way, way, way underexpressed.
yes,
And the thing is, and sometimes there is a conception like, so we've all known people that talk too much, right? They're just like yap 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 without saying anything, right? And those people can be extremely irritating. And sometimes we think of expressing, they're not expressing, they're just yapping, right? And there's so much,
yes,
and I'm just talking about people that we see in person, people in the news, celebrities, whatever. They're just yapping, they're not really expressing themselves. So as a principle, I think we are so far underexpressed. And the basic problem is that people don't really know what that means. They don't know what it means to express themselves. They think that, oh, so and so, this, fantastic singer or artist or whatever, they express themselves really well, but I can't really do that. And the news is that you can, and that will
how?
really, well, see, that depends on the person, but the as far as the details of the how, but the broad stroke of the how is that, by letting yourself be seen, ultimately
Aha,
by being vulnerable,
aha,
by having the intention, if I want people to see my soul, and we see that, without, I'm going to try not to mention names, but with bands and things like that, they'll start out like, wow, this is so amazing, and then they hit this plateau. Why do people hit the plateau? Because they're selling, and just, musicians as an example, but there's so many examples, writers,
yes,
actors, movie makers, whatever. So they hit this plateau because they don't need to show their soul to sell more. I'm not saying they're all about the money, but when you really are vulnerable, when you really show your soul to people, that is a scary thing.
it
And
is.
when you do it, then people notice and they want to know what you have to offer, what you have to show, what you have to say. And when you don't do it, it's like, yeah, ho hum. It's
Exactly. You're in your mind, you're in your head, right? And
right.
and you say that beautifully that expressing and showing your soul through what you're doing, it's great. It requires vulnerability. It requires self-work. Absolutely. And in the same time, for us, when we put our soul and when we express ourselves, this brings a lot of joy. And I think this is the key to enter those flow states, right? In which we lose self consciousness.
I believe so. I believe so. And, I also believe that there's another very closely related cousin to that, is that, we're designed, we want to make the most positive difference in the lives of others.
Yes.
We really do. And I believe that's just inherent to us,
Yes.
to us
Yes.
as living creatures. So we want to express ourselves and we want to make a difference. So if we can do those both at the same time, that's awesome. And I believe that's the most fulfilling. So, and people talk about happiness, and, I'm happy. They really focus on the happiness. Happiness is going to come and go. There's nothing we can do to change that, right? There's nothing
Yes.
we can do to change that. And, but fulfillment, that can be with us always. And fulfillment will be a cause of happiness. So if we look at what will fulfill us, I think that's far more important. And for me, what I found, I can't say absolutely, it's what I believe for everyone that's true, but absolutely for myself, I know that I'm most fulfilled if I am expressing myself, and if I am, and helping others express themselves and really making a difference in other people's lives. That's
Absolutely.
very fulfilling for
And
me.
you are an all-rounded individual in my eyes, and
Thank you.
you found different outlets to express yourself. And one is you wrote a book. different.
And I'm just
And
turning off my all my outside sounds, which I should have done before, but so
it's
I stopped.
okay, it's just
Hopefully that'll
life.
do it.
You started to write long time ago, and
Long
you
time ago.
write and you become better and better. It's an activity that brings you joy. It's an
Mm.
activity, right? And you fully express yourself. And it took you some decades to publish your book.
It did. Yeah.
Why? Why so long?
Um, why so long? Great question. Because I really never saw myself as a writer,
Oh,
and that's the funny thing because I wrote, and I was writing from when I was 13 and writing a lot. I'd write a lot of things and, nothing for school. And in school, I was very interested in music. I was playing professionally bass guitar when I was 15. And I was doing really, it was really exciting and I was going to be a professional musician. And that kind of eclipsed the whole thing around writing. And even though in school, when I would occasionally hand in a paper, people would be very surprised, my teachers, because like I was a troublemaker in school. I
oh,
was one of
really? I
I was
wouldn't say so. Writing a book different.
I was one of the bad kids. So when I give my teacher one of these, a paper or something, they'd be like, "Oh, this is amazing." They'd be more surprised because they'd never expect it from one of the bad kids. And so in all my life, I was writing, and I had people telling me, "You should write. You should be a writer." I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't really want to do that." And then at a certain point, so I want to say. So this was maybe 20 years ago. I actually started. I started dedicating myself to writing. I think this is important for everybody here. I had no plan to share this, and I started writing. I had a contract with a publisher, and the publisher, in the middle of the contract, I was writing the book. In the middle of the contract, they said, "Okay, we're canceling this contract because we're going to go to nonfiction." It was a fiction book, and we'll give you your contract back. They were like, "Oh, we're going to be so generous and give this back to you." Like, like that
Okay.
was generous. It was my intellectual property. But anyway, and that was a very negative experience for me, and it kind of discouraged me, in a way, even though I said, yeah, ultimately I want to do this. And I had experience as a screenwriter. I sold one Hollywood screenplay, and it never got made into a movie, but I had such a bad experience with that. I thought, I'm just going to write my novel. I'm just going to write instead. And I never did. I had this bad experience, and I just went for years and years. And like I said, that was all, 18 to 20 years ago, between the screenplay and the bad experience with the publisher. And I let it stop me. I let it get in my way until it came to a point where, I felt my soul was demanding, you have to do this. There's no
Yeah.
question. And I was helping other people become excellent. I've edited million copy best-selling authors. I've
Yes.
helped other people, and I just came to this aha. It's like, well, when am I going to actually write my own book?
Did you find that you are playing small? Lur?
Yes, I was playing smaller. I was definitely playing smaller, and I decided, it's time to stop doing that.
So what was the turning point for you?
The turning point was a friend saying, "What the hell are you doing?"
Mm.
It's like you have, and I've been told many times, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but people have told me, you're gifted at writing. And how is it you're not writing? And, this like, and I know the markets, I know what, it's like, well, they have this and the screenplay experience and the publisher experience. And it was easy to discount that. But and this turning point happened, I want to say it was about 5 years ago now. And at that point, I was writing my memoir. It's like, okay, and I'm going to ultimately publish this. And my friend said, "Well, how long have you been writing a memoir?" And I said, "Oh, about 4 years." He said, "Yeah, you got to stop. You got to stop and just do what your soul wants you to do. You can come back to that at another time, but right now you're obviously meant to be doing something else." And I took that advice, and I started writing, and then different was my first result. So after that time, it really took me a good year to start on different, and then I started on different, and then that was the beginning of the end of that
So
phase.
before I come to different, it's just something that I would like to ask you.
Yeah,
I don't believe in asking, if you would redo your life, because I think that the path we are in is just the path that we are on, and is the perfect one because it's not a different one.
yeah.
But what would you advise for somebody that wants to to write their book and publish their book, and they might face some hurdles like you had with those with the publishing book and publishing publisher that some kind dented your identity. What would you advise
I would
people
advise
to do?
notice what you are letting get in your way. Because even with my screenwriting experience, and again, it wasn't, I enjoyed doing the screenplays. It was just the industry. I still don't like the screenwriting industry, but I allowed that to get in my way. I allowed that to stop me. I allowed my negative experience with the publisher to get in my way, because at that time, I was, I'm training speakers. I've trained some of the top speakers in the world. I love doing that. I'm helping people express themselves in that way, and I still do that. But for me, I feel it's not as high as high a level of self-expression as writing is. So that would be my advice. Watch what you allow to get in your way. Not like, because the tendency is to say, oh, this got in my way, that got in my way. But it's like, what do you allow to get in your way?
Yeah.
That'd be my
Uh,
advice.
How do you get in touch with your soul again?
That's a really good question. So, so with different, right? So I shared this, I had one of my processes of writing is I ask beta readers, people that I really trust, when I'm done with the book. It's not, doesn't have the final edits, doesn't have the final proofing, because I want it to be flawless in that sense, right? Shouldn't have
Yeah.
grammatical errors like a lot of books do these days. So before it's at that point, I send it to beta readers, and I'll send it out to maybe 10 people. And I pick people that are experts in certain fields, people that I really trust and are not going to, blow smoke. They're going to tell me the truth. And I say, what worked for you, what didn't. I don't want critical feedback in terms of, how you could do this story this way or whatever. I just want to know what works for you. And some of the people that I sent it out to know me really well, and many people said, "I really saw you in this book," and that's scary because there's some bad
Yeah.
people in my books, and what I feel is, in terms of, in answer to your question, getting in touch with my soul, I feel that I'm not a great writer. I just really put myself into my work, and I believe that all the good musicians and writers and actors or whatever, they really allow themselves to be
To
seen
be
in their
seen.
work.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
the thing.
Parts of them, at least parts of them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
So and if you really show who you are through your writing, it's an amazing experience. It is scary, and as an advice, I would say to people, be ready for there to be resistance in yourself. It's like, yeah, no, I didn't really do that. Or people come out, even sometimes close friends will say, oh, that's a little too whatever you're sharing. Yeah, and people can share too much, but they can say, you're sharing too much, or it's like, you need to keep some distance. And I
Yeah.
disagree. I say, let them see who you are, what you're made of, and then they can put the book down or they can walk out of the room or whatever it is, but show who you are.
Did you so you wrote the book, you express yourself. Were you thinking about these prices that you get? Or it was the process that allured you into the writing the book and you finalizing the book, or both? So it's
I
the
didn't even
destination and the process, or
I didn't even think about the prizes. I did not even think. I did not think I would ever get a single prize. It's my first book, and and I'm competing against the biggest titles, like coming out from, all the big publishers, and there are millions of books published a year. There's over 2 million books published around the world every single year. So I didn't even think there'd be a chance. And I just want to give you a quick update on the prizes, because you mentioned 6. I didn't. I should have maybe emailed you ahead of time. Now it's 7.
You
7
got another
prizes.
one.
I
Congratulations.
got another one. Yeah. Is the
Beautiful.
yeah.
So how does it make you feel actually? You got 7 major prizes in literary awards. How
Yeah.
does it make you feel?
It makes me feel really good. It's very encouraging, especially since and this is so important for people, right, in the creative process. So I see things like what a sine wave is, right? It goes up and down, right, over time. And what happens is sometimes we feel great about our creative work, and then it's not so great. It's okay. It's not so bad. It's actually kind of bad. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's crap. It's just useless, right? And that never ends. It always goes up and down. So, and with writing a book, it's like that. And parts of writing can be tedious. It's like, oh, this is a long process, and there's a lot, parts of it are tedious, and then parts of it are joyful. It's like, oh, this is so fun. And what happens is when people go on that curve, sometimes at the top, they jump off. Like, oh, my book is great. Okay, it's done. And it's really not done. It needs a lot more work for it to be their best work. Or at the bottom, when they're thinking, oh, this is just garbage, they jump off at that point.
Yeah.
And that's
We are
not good either.
we are talking about a book, but it can be any
It
outlet,
can be anything.
expressive outlet, right? It can be a
Exactly. Exactly. Any expressive outlet. And that curve will always be there. And so when they jump off at the bottom, they're like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So when I, getting those awards, and again, just totally caught me by surprise. Getting those awards, it was a big encouragement that, yeah, this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is
yeah.
God. This is the universe, however you want to refer, is this is the confirmation that I'm doing what
You
I
get the
was
feedback
doing.
from the universe, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a big validation there. Yeah.
How would you have been different as a human being without those prizes, but still with the book?
I would. That's a really good question. Um, how would I have been as a human being? I think I would be the same as a human being. As a writer, it would be a little more maybe as a struggle, just to like, I mean, the fact is, I love my book. I tell Rachel Jane that sometimes this might sound weird. I dream about my characters. I have a dream about a character from the book, and they're
And she
like,
said, "Yay!"
well, they feel like they're real people to me. And, they're real people to me. And so I would like to think that there wouldn't be that much different, in how I am in my writing. It just would be, okay, there's not that validation there. But one of the things that I've always done is to go on without validation. Like when I, like with my bass playing, right? With my musicianship,
Music.
with my singing, it's like I have gone on for long periods of time without validation. And I think that's what we need to be able to do. We need to self-validate. We need to notice,
Yes.
like, I'm
Yes.
going in the direction I want to go. People tend to think in terms of quantum leaps, but it's that little tiny nudge. I'm
Yes.
getting a little bit better, and that's all that counts. Because you put a lot of those tiny little nudges together, they add up.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Many people say, "Oh, I'm not creative. I'm not a creative person."
Mhm.
You're a writer. You have your ideas, and you wrote the book. But how do we? How I think everybody's creating in their own ways, because it's not everybody is going to get a Pulitzer and write a book, but creativity comes into many forms and shapes, right? How do we shut down our creativity, you think?
First of all, I just want to say I absolutely agree with that. I believe that every one of us is creative, and at different points we shut down our creativity. So like I was saying before, right? So the best creativity is going to be based on vulnerability. It's going to be based on coming from your soul, right? Coming from that deepest part of you. And when we share that, like we could be 5, we could be 4, we could be 17, and we share that and somebody shuts us down, that's awful. That's
Yeah.
horrible. What are you doing? It's like that can be very painful. We feel very exposed. And you get that repeatedly. It's like, oh, I can't do that. Or people tell us, you're not a creative person, or you need to do this to make money. I was in a relationship with someone, this was obviously pre Rachel Jane, and she was telling me, so her father was a very famous photographer in New York City. He's famous, made a fortune doing it. And he was, a commercial photographer. His son wanted to be a fine art photographer, a creative photographer. And his father, like, you can't do that. That's just ridiculous. That's crazy, and yada, yada. And just ultimately discouraged him into doing something, and you need to do something that makes money and so on and so forth. And I saw this person as a very ultimately unfulfilled person.
Yeah.
That's my judgment. But, it's like, a lot of times, and yes, we need to eat, we need to have a place to stay, but what I believe is you do what really excites you, it's going to excite others.
Yeah.
There's John Wesley, the man who started the whole Methodist Church way back, who's actually an ancestor of mine. He used to say that if you burn with it was something like, I'm going to paraphrase and I might be misquoting, but if you burn with an enthusiasm, the whole world will catch on fire.
Yeah. And
So
this is, yeah.
I was going to say, you do what really excites you. Other people will get excited about it, and they'll know when you write, they'll get that excitement.
And states of creativity, I think that, states of enthusiasm also are the fuel maybe to creativity, right?
They definitely can be. They definitely can be. And I
Yeah.
think, I think we can't overlook the importance and the power of that whole shutdown, how the shutdown works. And here's the thing I want to say about the human brain, right? When we hear something
Yeah.
repeatedly, doesn't matter how far from the truth it is, right?
Yeah.
We're going to start to believe it. And
Yes.
Goebbels, who was Hitler's propaganda minister, said that. And you tell them a
Yes.
lie, no matter how
Yes.
outrageous, you repeat it and people will believe it. It's so absolutely true. And so
Controlling the masses.
yes, and we do it to ourselves.
Yes.
So people say you're not creative, you can't be creative, your creativity is not good. We replay the tape, and the more we replay it ourselves, it just sinks in there. And then,
Yes.
yes, I'm not a creative person, people think.
So you left the writing path and you became an engineer. I'm asking you because I was an engineer, right? It
I
was
didn't know
part of
that
this.
about you.
Yeah, I studied power engineering a long time ago.
Wow.
Um, so you became an engineer. How did you express your creativity as an engineer, as a
Well,
scientist?
that's a really good question. So I have major engineering projects on 5 continents, right? I have major projects in South Africa and India and in Taiwan and Europe and all around the United States. And I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And and when I had some specialties, one of my specialty was lighting. Like I go into some massive, like I worked on this community center in South Africa. And it's like, how can I light this thing so people see it and they're like, wow. And I love doing that. And then I realized later, well, the 2 things I really loved about my engineering work was it could make a big difference for people, and I enjoyed the creative part of it. I enjoyed, like,
Right.
sculpting with lighting or whatever it was I was doing. And, I did also power design and all kinds of things. And I realized the things I really loved, I could do more of them in other ways. So, and that's, I was actually working in Europe, and I had a company called Alternative Energy Systems. And, I worked with hydroelectric, I worked with solar and different kinds of alternative projects. And I was at one time I was the chairman of the International Committee for Self-Sufficiency. And it's like I really enjoyed the creative work I could do, and I enjoyed helping people. And then I
Yes.
realized later, if I become a speaker, if I start speaking and I train other people how to be expressive and speakers, I can do a lot more of the exact same thing. And that was
Yes.
a correct calculation. I was able to do that.
Yes. Yes.
And all the time, all during through that, I was still writing. I never stopped writing. I just done, it's like something I do. And then, again, so when my friend told me this, 5 years ago, it wasn't a really hard sell, because I realized, yeah, I've never let that go. I've always loved it, and I've always had good reaction from it. So that was an
Yeah.
easy, way to get back to it. So with
Yeah.
engineering, it was literally almost from one day to the next. And this is an important thing that I really want to share with people. So this was, okay, I'm going to think of the years, 2008. So in 2008, Rachel Jane and I moved to Colorado, and that at that time we thought, you know what, I'm going to give up this whole engineering. It was paying good money, and I had people calling me and say, hey, we want you to do this job. We want you to come here. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And the people would say things like, money is no object, which usually means you ask whatever you want. And I'm like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm doing something else with my life at this point. And they just thought I was nuts. And we went through some economic hardships, some severe economic hardships. I mean, we literally, we lost our house.
Yeah. In
Um,
2000, in a recession.
yes, yes. And and I could have just jumped back into the engineering thing and had a pretty decent recovery from that. But it's like, no, that's not what I want to do with my life.
So you heard the call of your soul for
I
at least
did.
for that period of.
I
So
did.
Lori Toning, hi Lori, says Data, we miss you in Europe. Okay, he's gonna come back with Rachel Jen, I'm sure at some
I
point.
miss you guys
So,
too, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back, this is like a sort of art of reinvention. But before I get into this, would it be correct to say that no matter what we are involved in, we can spark creativity in whatever process we are involved in, because we are not going for a Pulitzer, we are going for self-expression, right? Is it
Exactly.
do you agree with this
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think, and again, getting back to what I was saying before, is noticing what you're letting stop you. People let so many things stop them, like, oh, I could never do that. Oh, I'm not on that level. And same thing in dealing with speaking. And speaking and writing, it's not all that different, right? There's just, speaking is more immediate, writing happens. You can, work on something over time, but there's a
yeah,
lot of similarity there. And people think like, oh, I'm not that talented. And like I was saying before, it's those little increments. You can get better and better. And it's not that hard to be really amazing, I believe, in
yeah,
either way. It's like, anybody has the same tools that we all have. This
yes,
whole idea that, one person is more talented than the other. In fact, I was just saying this yesterday on a video. People have, like, for example, Mozart, right? Mozart, I used to play in a symphony, and classical music is important to me. And Mozart, what a genius. And people say, they hold Mozart out as like an example of somebody that's born amazing. Mozart's father wrote a book before Wolfgang was born, and the book was called How to Raise a Child Prodigy. And
hmm,
people say he was writing symphonies when he was 4, but they weren't any good. It's like they were,
yeah,
it's like not what a 4-year-old does, but his father was very, pushing him and this and that. His first symphony, Mozart's first symphony, is considered amazing. He wrote when he was 19. And he did that
yes,
when he had, 14, 15 years of practice and focus behind him.
yes,
So people think like, oh, it's all about, you can't be a Mozart. Well, actually you can be. Are you willing to put in the work to be there?
yes. So when you invent it yourself. I think that with you is also a lot of art of reinvention, because you're a musician, engineer, and a writer, and then a speaker and a coach. You have so many different outlets. What is the commonality of all those, you think?
The commonality of all those is that they are all things that I went for. And when I say I
Yeah.
went for, I mean, so I started playing, and again, my parents were very, musically interested. I started playing cello when I was 9, went to string bass, the standard
Yeah.
bass when I was 10. When I was 13, I went to bass guitar, and I thought, oh, this is the instrument for me. And I was practicing 7 hours per day on that guitar.
So discipline, perseverance.
And just going all the way. Like I put my afterburners all the way on if I was flying a jet plane, and I would just go all the way for it until I find out that it's not the thing for me. I was playing music professionally when I was 15 in the Washington D.C. area. I played a lot. And then when I was 18, I decided this is not going to be my profession. I want to do it, but not as a profession. And that was a shift. My primary profession is going to be engineering, and music will be secondary to me. So that's what I've always done, is I'm going to go all the way for it.
Yeah.
When I talk to somebody, they're interviewing me for doing a massive, I mean, we're talking about multi-million-dollar projects, so they want to interview, and they'll say, can you do this? Well, I don't say I've never done it before, but I'd like to try. I'd say, yes, I can do that.
Yeah.
And
And
that's it.
yeah, and one of the things that actually it comes out in everything you do. You were saying that recession hit you. Of course, in the transition, you left a very successful career behind you,
Mm.
and you went all the way in because you have a multi-million dollar successful business that you birthed it together with Rachel Jane, right?
Yeah, right.
So it's like there is something, it's the ethic is that you go fully into it, and you make a success, whatever it means for you, in everything you do your way.
And I'm a quitter.
You're a quitter.
I'm a quitter. When I
Yes, that.
see something is not what I'm going to do, I quit. So with music, I've never quit music. I mean, in the events, you've seen us, Rachel Jane, we play music in every
Yes.
one of our events. We love doing that. But I quit it as a primary profession. With my engineering, I quit it. Period. I just quit it. It's like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And abruptly, and it was like, and I literally had people calling me with those like offers, here, come do this, we'll give you anything you want, and I'm like, yep, nope, not doing that.
So it's the art of knowing when to let go, which is sort
Exactly.
of, it's like a forgiveness part. It's just I let go. I'm ready
Yeah,
for a new chapter, and
yeah,
I go fully for it. Oh, that was
absolutely.
very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Very inspiring. I hope you want to come back to talk to me and to share at some point in the future, maybe about how to become a great public speaker or whatever.
I
Let's
would
go
love
through it,
that.
because you have so many talents. Thank you so much. And tradition is that we gonna close also with a short centering, but before that, is there anything that you would have liked me to ask you and I did not?
You asked awesome questions. I love your questions. And
Thank
I
you.
would say the last thing I would want to say is never let what's really good get in the way of what's best for you to express to the world.
Okay, one more time.
So
Let me marinate this.
never let what is really good get in the way of what is best for you to express in the world. And
Beautiful.
with me, it was, the music, the engineering, even the public speaking was getting in the way of what is like my best level of expression. And it's easy to do, especially when we get good at something, then we can just stay with it. And sometimes there's
Yes.
actually something above that. And it's
The
everybody has to decide for themselves what that is.
the comfort zone in a way.
I think
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
So thanks a lot. So
Thank
shall we
you.
shall we ding?
Why not? So let's close our eyes. Yeah. And just feel inside. Let yourself have that stillness where anything can come. Be in a state of receptivity. Sometimes easier said than done. Hmm. And thank you. Thank you, Catalina, and thank you, everyone, for
Thank you
showing up.
so much. And
It's
see
my
you next time. Thank you. Have a
looking
wonderful
forward.
day. Everybody, have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you.